Now, the grant proposal sometimes says the same story in different components. It says the same story with a different focus. So when I write my project narrative, it's about what is the purpose and how do I support this purpose. When I write the evaluation section, it's about this is the evaluation of this purpose. Okay? When I write the budget section, I'm saying the same story with a different focus. Why? Because actually when you submit a grant proposal, very often the different parts are read by different people. Especially with very long grants, where the expectations are long, okay, there will be people specialized in the budgeting area. So they will review your budget, okay? When you are writing the evaluation part, there are people who are experts in assessment tools. They will be reading your assessment part. So different parts may be read by different people, okay? They all need to learn what this project is about and then focus on their part. So they will probably all read the project narrative and then their section. They read the project narrative and read the budget, okay? So then you need to make sure that every single section can relate the story with a different focus. Okay, this is easy. The work plan is when you divide up, here are the steps that need to be done. This PI is responsible for this part. That PI is responsible for this. Or if you are doing an individual project, then you want to outline the sequence of how you will implement the project. That's the work plan. Sometimes, particular universities or organizations, you have to fill in the grant application on an online form. And sometimes they will just send out a call and you have to do it on a Word document, save it as PDF and send it to them. So you divide it up. Maybe they give you a word count per section. And maybe they give you a word count for the whole thing together. And maybe they don't give you a word count at all. You have to know the rhetorical situation, the requirements, the context, the audience. So my point here was that sometimes when you're applying online, the work plan is a template. It's already done it's an Excel sheet, for example, and you have to fill out the steps on the Excel sheet. And sometimes you just do it in the text of your Word document. Okay, so you have to find out how it is expected to be done. The timeline, again, similar to what Dr. Grant had said for the research proposal, how much time is devoted realistically per stage of implementation. Okay, sometimes again the timeline, you have to do it in a kind of graphic representation, like an Excel sheet or a Gantt chart or something. And sometimes it's just pointers. When you're giving the timeline, you are highlighting benchmarks. Okay, so at this stage, I should have finished, for example, the implementation of stage 1 of the project. And then the next benchmark, milestones. Okay, at this point, we have the progress report due. Okay, so the timeline will chart all of the different steps. Now, it's very important to outline it in months, project months, rather than calendar months. Project month 1, month 2, month 3. So month 1 begins when you have the resources ready. But if you say January, February, March, and you promise to begin in January, and then you don't access the funds until April, then you're already behind and you've already not fulfilled what you signed up for on the contract. This is a problem here in Egypt. Sometimes you apply for a grant, you get the grant, but the grant needs to go through a lot of governmental bureaucracy before you actually receive it and do something with it. Okay? تمويل خارجي. Okay? So it needs to be, it goes through a lot of checks and balances before you're able to access the funds and use them. So then if you've got calendar months on your proposal, خلاص, you're already behind, okay? The budget needs to be researched. You need to know, remember, you're not asking for funding with an attitude of معلش الله يخليك محتاج, okay? That's not the attitude, and therefore you want to cover your costs. You want to chart out everything that's going to require funding, okay? The personnel, the travel, the resources, the equipment, subscriptions, internet, you know, anything that requires a fees, okay? You want to chart out your lines of spending and really, really invest in finding out what the real costs are, not approximations, no, what the real costs are. And you calculate into it like a percentage of, you know, inflation or whatever. So you, personally, if it's a big project, I would get the assistance of an accountant or somebody who works on budgeting and get the real costs, okay? Be able to break it down by item, be able to not just itemize, but also to look at the cost of a unit multiplied by the number of units that you need, okay? So yes, you need to buy 1,000 textbooks, okay? The cost of a textbook is X multiplied by 1,000, and that's what it gives you. So you put everything that you think will require funding without feeling, if I ask for less, I have a better chance of getting it. No. No, if you are realistic, you have a better chance of getting it. Okay? That's the most important thing on the budget and budget justification. A couple of other tips, okay? If there is cost sharing, you need to show it. So if you are getting, for example, the airfare and the travel expenses from one organization and accommodations from another organization, you need to show on your grant proposal for each organization who the other donor is and what they are covering, so that there is no double coverage, okay? And it also tells the donor something about you, you know, that you are honest and that you are seeking funding through multiple organizations who are equally interested in your cause. If another key organization is interested in your mission, it kind of gives your project credibility. Other people are interested in this, okay? So you show cost sharing. You show in-kind contributions. If Fulbright gave me, for example, free access to internet and free laptops to use, etc., even though they didn't pay, they gave me in-kind contributions. I show that as well. Right, we talked a little bit about evaluation. What is it that you would need to write in the evaluation section? The evaluation section is, how do I measure the success of my project? How do I know that my project will be successful or is successful after I've implemented it, okay? Or at different stages of implementation. So I have tools that I've developed. Maybe it's a survey, maybe it's the number of times people have clicked on my page, okay? And maybe it's a full-scale experiment to test the success of whatever I've been working on. So the evaluation section needs to develop the tools and to show how I will use these methods to test or to measure my impact. Donors also want to know, what if at the end of the project, when I have donated $3,000, okay, and you've completed the project and it's done and the grant has finished, what happens next year? Is the project impact going to continue or is it going to fizzle out? So how do you sustain that impact? How do you sustain it?